Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. Today, I'm actually going to do something that I said I wasn't going to do anymore, which are the new moons and full moons. Unless they were eclipses or something very interesting. Well, in the last couple of days, I've attended several lectures of other astrologers, and inevitably this new moon and the full moon both show up. These were not asteroid astrologers, though, so I just want to verify that right up front. But they kept pointing out some really interesting things about this new moon that I felt I really needed to look at the asteroids in these axes, because these charts appeared to be extremely telling. And so I thought, I didn't want to do it, but I really felt that I should, because it was a really great opportunity for me to layer on what this particular new moon could tell us with regards to what's going on in the world. And the very first heads up, well, let's wait till we get into the chart. Let's check out the chart and I can show you exactly what I'm talking about and the reason why I felt it was so important for me to not just look at this chart, but to further discuss the asteroids and how they play a role in this particular new moon chart. So just before I begin, I want to remind everyone that new moon charts are predictable charts, that such as a lunar return would be to an individual. The difference in a new moon chart is, for example, one of the most important things that we're going to be looking at is the fact that in Washington, D.C., and realize that this chart will change depending on where you live. That was actually one of the things that I saw in this lecture, was not this new moon chart they were playing with, but it was actually the solstice chart, which is another very big chart coming up. This particular chart, this new moon, will be different depending on where you live. So I did, of course, Washington, D.C., because that's the one that affects me the most, not just because I live on the East Coast of the United States, but also because I happen to be an American citizen. I do want to point out, though, that some of the things I'm going to be talking about with this are also going to be important to you regardless of where you live in the world. But let's start by pointing out that the eclipse degree was 21 degrees of Libra. I want to follow that up by saying that the ascendant degree of the United States chart is 21 degrees of Libra. So it's the ascendant. It's not the sun. Last time it was the sun. But what is it telling us? It's telling us that that eclipse chart has a huge impact on this chart as well. So let's go have a look at it because it is quite interesting. Okay, so here's the chart as a pizza pie. And it's 2144, and that was like 2107. So there's, roughly 30 minutes, a little less than 30 minutes between that eclipse sun and the ascendant of this particular chart. But that's not where the aha shows up the most. I do want to talk about this. Look at the second house of money, United States, second house money is where we see the sun and the moon. Now, I don't care where you live in the world. That sun and moon is going to be opposed by the planet Uranus. Here it is at 2104, and they are 2043. So we're talking about Taurus and Scorpio. And the interesting thing is we're also talking about money and shared resources. Okay, so it's a very money, and it's money all over the place. We'll get to some asteroids. Stellaro is actually on the descendant. I could go on and on. But one of the things that I really think this does not bode well for, which is why I really want to get it out, is I don't think they're going to be able to come up with a budget. In other words, I think we're looking at a government shutdown. Hopefully not for long. It is just Uranus. But I'm going to show you a lot of other things in there that play out with this chart. I want to point out things like the fact that that Kronos, which is not Hades Kronos, just Kronos, falls at the midheaven and opposes Pluto. Transformations of authorities, or maybe the way we see authority. Credo is a credibility asteroid. It's just slightly out of an axis, which we'll look at later. But this is really important, I think, for all of us to look at. Okay, so let's start with, I'm going to do my asteroid thing, because I think that if you're any kind of an astrologer, the fact that the sun, moon, and Mars are all conjuncting in the second house, you know that money is going to be a big highlight. The fact that Uranus is in the 8th house kind of indicates that there will be a sudden action on this in opposition to these planets, Sun, Moon, and Mars. So we have that Uranus in opposition of those planets. Does not bode well. Does not. So, especially with Adamite up here in the 8th house as well, it's like not getting the money. It's like we're stuck. We have obstacles to overcome. Okay, so what are we discussing here before I get into a lot of other things? Okay, also Volcanus is, there's a lot of pressure on the authorities right now. And they're both retrograde. But there's also a sense of, not just because hubris is here at the ascendant, which you can actually see hubris is actually conjunct the south node. Boy, that's just, I'm hearing things in my head like, war and the past. It's like, yeah, I heard another astrologer say that, he was alive X amount of years, and every day of his life, there's been a war. I'm not much younger than that gentleman. We're both kind of close in the same proximity of ages. And I'm going to tell you the same thing is true of me. There is a war machine out there in the world that really tends to make money from war. But we are at the point where we're now becoming aware, okay, which is the pressure. It's just meant to be Vulcan. I like one of my teachers that I listen to, not an asteroid teacher, a Uranian teacher, and he does talk about the inevitability of, like, when Volcanus, which I've always been taught is the seed. It's also pressure, whether it's internal or external. But there's also this sense, and I like this attitude, that, hey, this was inevitable, it was meant to be, and a little bit of that comes with it. Now, hubris is, again, right on that ascendant, okay? And just looking at some of the other planets that come up, Hebe is codependency, okay? Hubris, it was fated because of the bonding and the politics, okay? It was inevitable that we would get here. And South Node, Zeus, is the oppression of the war. We're oppressed from this old-fashioned concept of how to deal with the world's problems. Just invade and destroy. That's hubris. It's like, geez, we got to evolve. So that's going on. What I also want to talk about here, and I'm going to go through all of them. I was going to jump around a bit more, but I'm not gonna. I really want to talk about the ascendant itself. And I want to show some of the asteroids that come up here, like Swindle. Okay. Barlow is something I just talked to everybody about recently. Okay. And that was this, I want to say extreme Pollyanna. Oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. How many times, I grew up, okay, in a situation. Now, I've been a student of politics and history for about 50 years. Gives a little bit of my age away. And I can tell you that the this whole, I come from an area where, I know this is going to sound really funny, no one voted. Only me. I was weird. And they told me I was weird. And no one had an interest, really. And they had this Pollyanna, like everything's going to be just fine. It always works itself out. No, no. If we're learning anything, we're learning that if we do not wake up and take our part, do our part, terrible things happen. So I know, because a lot of people can't believe that only a third of Americans actually vote. Now, it's getting better and better, and I think it will get better and better always, continuously, because I think that what we've just been through has been an eye-opening experience to so many people, to see all the ways in which they were swindled, lied to, and all these things are also in the chart. So swindle, I was not surprised to see swindle. Not one bit was I surprised. Barlow is that optimism. Hebe, we're so oh, they're going to do the right thing. We'll just give them the money. That's not so good. How about the minor elliptis, and remember, I just talked about it's so weird, these asteroids just showed up. We just talked about them in my last video. Malit is that we need to wonder more. Like, we're all wondering. And it's this attitude and our wondering that select going to cause a little bit of humiliation, hubris, and south node. In other words, the tools that we've been using, the way we've been handling things, not the right way. Other factors that we're going to see here are Sappho, which is that bonding, which I just talked about. Pallas, which is, people who say everything you want to hear, but it's also a very political asteroid. Albertus Magnus is money. Sisyphus is here we go again. And then there's a talent, and you'll see opportunities in here as well, and destined. This was all destined. This was Vulcanus. This was sort of meant to be where we are. And I'm not just talking about the wars that are going on, although it is a Zeus South Node, because of the wars that a lot of this other stuff is coming out. But I'm talking about the democracy, the shaky democracy of the United States, and the fact that the Republican Party has pulled in a lot of what I want to say stray elements into the party, one of which being this Christian fraction, which honestly has never been a part of our government. We are not a Christo-fascist government. We've never been a Christo government. We have too many different religions here. This is an incredibly diverse environment. As a matter of fact, I prefer that. I love that we're so diverse. We also have some of the best food in the world because of the diversity. I know that the GMO aspect of our food's not good, but hey, grow your own stuff and then get your recipes from your neighbors. And it's just amazing what you'll be able to make. So that's the tools that we've been using. So if I go across the dial to the descendants, I'm going to work over here now. I do want to point out the one that you can see here is not just the North Node. So some of this country's most genuine connections are, going to show up during this particular sojourn. And the panacea says that there's an ability to solve problems. Now, this is retrograde. It's a retrograde area, so it won't kind of look normal. But I think in a way, it's through interruptions, it's through disruptions, which is what they're doing right now, what they call ceasefires that only last for a few hours. They're pauses. They're not really ceasefires. They're actually pauses, and how these are going to help us solve some of the problems. And it is an alternative way to solve this problem. We had no choice. But you see, when you have no choice, how creative you can be. So other factors that we would see there. Well, there's a lot of partnerships and negotiation deals with Bano. And Rosetta is about the truth that sets us free. So I do believe, and you're going to see lies in here as well, but I do believe that one of the things that we're going to come up with through our connections is the idea of truth. Shiva, it's actually Shiva here. I said Shiva. I don't know if I said Shiva. It's that ability to kind of withdraw. And so it's this withdrawing that's an alternative method that, that will disrupt things. But and it solves problems, and it's going to ultimately present opportunity. So here we have talent and we have opportunity both within that axis point, and I think that gives us hope for healing. But I do want to point out that it also comes with two massive money asteroids, Duke, which is fairly large money, and Dolaro, so the dollar. So money is, again, a huge issue in all of this. And could we not have guessed with Mars, Moon, and Sun in the second house, the house of values and worth? And what do we value? Because that's a good question that I think us, you, me, and the people who probably listen to this video all literally believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we have to acknowledge that for some people in high places, money, 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 power, power, power are the things that speak to them. And unfortunately, that's not always good for the rest of us. So just looking now at the midheaven, the top of the chart, what we want the world to see, besides the authority, and I know that Biden is playing a huge, and Lincoln are playing a huge role in the external world and what the external world is getting right now. So, but just to talk about this, in addition to Chronos, which is credibility, it's timing, it's authority figures, but just kind of looking, beyond that, at that particular midheaven, we're also looking at photographia, which I'm going to be honest with you is the reason why the ascension of the rest of us is really occurring when it comes to we will not watch more children die. We will not watch innocent people be slaughtered so some power can go to somebody else. So that's a huge factor, and it's going to be a huge factor politically. Remember, it's on the other angle as we pursue and move on through time. Through these photographies, we're going to be able to also discern the lies, okay? And the other thing I like here is that we have to question those with smiling faces, because that's an Achilles heel for us, which is part of what's to blame in all of this. So I really wanted to point that out with regards to the midheaven. I did want to mention one more thing about that midheaven. Another of our new asteroids, Barrett, which is telepathy. It's more of an intuitive telepathy type of energy. I think I did that in the last one. If I didn't, I'm going to have to do another video where I throw in more asteroids and talk about that. But that is also coming to the midheaven. And so a lot of it, I think, is that particularly those of us as we're out in the world or as we're looking at photography or if we're listening to other people, we really should tune into our own intuition, because we can discern our own lies and understand that Rosetta is the truth that sets us free. And that also is on the angle. So that's a good thing. Now, the last part of the angle before I go to the dial and we look at the axis of the sun, which also is very telling, we're going to look at the IC here. And I go 10 degrees on either side. So it starts with Circe, which is getting and giving help at the last minute, particularly medical help and drugs, okay? But we know that things, through this whole experience, we are changing, okay? I know this sounds really weird because I've lived my whole life with people going to war, but we're not going to be feeling the same about it anymore. And over the next several years, many things are changing and the ascension is happening. And the ascension is us. This is the only place you can ascend anyway. And our ascension is going to be things like we're sick of watching innocent people die. Okay, we're just sick of it. So we turn to this IC, and in addition, here's where some of the lies show up. We got Blarney showing up with, and this is a good one. So you got Blarney and Bostrom. And Bostrom is like incessant talking. So whoever is excessively and is like those that are talking the most are feeding you the most lies. Just be aware of that. I did talk about Bacchus, but Bacchus is also, for all of us, it's also the concept of denial. It's also the concept of addictions, whether it be drug addictions, and not just with Westphalia. Yeah, it's about 3 degrees away, well, less than that. But it's, it could very well be related to medical drugs, okay? But it can also be the denial of the house. And that we could take literally. Our House of Representatives is strongly in denial about what's going on in the world. They're so busy pushing their radical Christian agenda, knowing that we are a country that has a hard and fast rule of a separation between church and state, because we're such a diverse group of people that you cannot expect all the people that come into the country to be Christians. That's ridiculous. Okay, so we have that going on. We also have the concept of prior. Things that have happened in the past are very much playing a role in what is going on now. And this is what's affecting Pluto, which is power. It's this whole concept of power and things that have happened in the past that have accumulated through this to get to this place. And we do know that people who have had positions of power in the world have taken advantage of it and abused it. And I could just go on and on and on about the amount of leaders that have done that. Our previous leader, who's still pulling shenanigans. Netanyahu, who's a part of a war right now. Putin, sitting in Russia, who's probably helping to kick this war into a really good high gear so that we don't look at Ukraine. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We look at this and we're like, do they think we're stupid? Someone thinks we're stupid. And then our own House of Representatives. Do they really think we're stupid? Because we know fascism when we see it. So there's a lot going on in the world. Laverna and Ditto and Pinocchio is just about the repeat of the lies. Ditto, more lies. Ditto, more lies. And honestly, quite frankly, the fact that they lie to us so much is one of the reasons why some of us, including myself, have to go out and find our own truth. Because they're always trying to take advantage of us by slipping us information that is either disinformation or it's gaslighting, pure and simple. So, with that said, let's move to the dial before I talk too much. And I want to go back. You could tell I've been working, and that's the other leg of the axis. Actually, I'm going to leave it. So here's our sun axis, right here. Bam. Okay. It's very interesting, actually, because Pluto plays a role in the actual chart, but it also plays a role in the sun-moon axis. It's really interesting, actually, because Pluto is the great transformer, but Pluto is also power issues. It's also manipulation and power play. It has a major dark side to it. I don't ever really mind Pluto myself on a personal level, but I do not so much appreciate seeing it in charts because it can be devastating in some charts. Now, in this case, Pluto equals Amor and Psyche. And one of the things that I'm really picking from this is that some of the people that have power issues, want to play power games, are also people who might have mental issues. Okay, and I'm not saying that because it's a bad thing. I mean, psychological damage happens to all of us. But when the psychological damage is used to motivate you to lie or be responsible for some destruction, now we're talking, okay? So across the way from Pluto, we have such things as amor, which is conditions of love. I love you, but not when you do that so much. Or I love you, but you can't do this. And so there's these conditions. And some of the conditions that, and this will be on a personal level, that some of us might be laying out are here we go again. You're just saying what you think I want to hear, but things are changing, things are transforming, and I have to put boundaries up around my love because you are destroying me. Okay, but I think of that even a lot of people wonder about the ex-president. He's 91 counts. I mean, the guy's a crook. I mean, someone like me, though, I've been following this concept since the 70s, and I knew he was a crook. I can't even believe that people would vote for him, but that's just me. But one of the things that I think is happening is that here's a person where a lot of people really loved them. And I think he's doing a lot of damage within his own base, even though the numbers are not reflected in the polls, but I'm not surprised by that. I don't believe polls. It's just me. Now, one of the beautiful aspects that I think is going to help us through this whole thing is the idea of Venus. And it's interesting because Pluto is across the way from love. Love with conditions, but love nonetheless. And Venus is that love, but Venus is also our social life. It's our friends and our contacts, our camaraderies. And, here we are, Venus is directly across from that Sun Uranus. So some people might fall instantly in love, but it might affect their associations. And some of these people might already be committed to other people. So there could be some issues there. Because you see the territorial issues here of Uranus is also describing a little bit about what's going on with the wars. And both wars are about territorial issues. I do think that when you squeeze people enough territorially, you are going to get something coming back at you, obviously. So here we have Cupido and Venus. So I want to say that. So Cupido and Venus are, which again, it just reiterates the destruction to of family homes. It reiterates the upset of territories and the upset of this to families and associations. I just think it's going to be deeper than we all think. And so that's the obvious. Okay, so let's get a little, besides this right here, which is, I'm going to go right there. Okay, so besides all of that, Sun, and then we have Uranus in a tight square to the conjunction of Mars, war, Saturn, which is Uranus, and then how it affects our connections, Moon and Sun, okay, and the people, which is the Moon. Just a lot. I mean, this is why I had to do it. I just saw that combination and went, oh crap, I have to do this. So it wasn't boring enough. I couldn't let it go. So let's talk about what is showing up in the axis points. Okay, so first of all, let's show what shows. Here's a memory asteroid. Remember we talked about the prior? So you're going to see, I like repeatable themes because then it makes it easier for me to make prediction. This is how I work with clients, because if I find repeatable themes, then I know I'm very safe to go way out on that limb. So we're going to look, I mentioned opportunity. Opportunity is huge in this aspect, as is price. What is the price of the opportunity? Opportunities generally come with a price. Most of the time it's prices we're willing to pay. But it makes me wonder, we've got to retrograde on them both. Really? Are we ready to do that? I can also tell you that the health of the internet and or what the internet can do to our physical health. And this is for people that are just too involved in this. They need to take the Shiva. It's that ability to withdraw. Some of us really need to do that. It was in the chart because I think we're getting burned out by the web. Now, on the other hand, it is also talking about websites where it's talking about kindness and being very kind to people. And I do think overall, all the people working on the internet are trying, to calm everybody, especially when you hear polls that we know are not true. There's no way 91 counts is beating our incumbent president with the lowest unemployment rate in, forever. It just doesn't make sense. 91 counts is not beating that. Okay. So not by, and then all the Democrats started winning a lot in the election. I just love when that happens though. Smiley is a concept. That means they do not trust the smiling face always. Sometimes faces that are smiling are genuine, but sometimes they are not. They want something. Okay. Then we go to a lax. And lax means that something is lacking. And it's interesting because one of the things that's lacking is graves. It's like people who are getting their lives cut short, but I don't know how they're burying them. So there's one where I don't know how much I want to get into that. So it's pretty interesting. But prayer is slightly outside of that. So it just makes me wonder what's going on with the bodies. As I pointed out, credo. I'm going to go with the chronos as we had seen before, but credo is just outside of this by a few minutes. It's the credibility of. Venus is running with Champ. Champ is humiliation. Okay. This could be somebody getting burned in a relationship, so please watch out for your personal lives. But this is also the United States giving money to a country that will not listen to them. It's been hard for the president to make some deals with Netanyahu. So that I thought was pretty like right there. So it's a friendship where, they're also, kind of getting egg on your face. So there's a lot of that. I went through the fact that politics and money, and here we go again, are also involved, not just on the angle now, but they're also involved in this particular axis. So it kind of makes them even more. But through it all, talent and opportunity still show. Along with the sun, and I already pointed this out, and the moon, is the asteroid of Hopi territories. But you know what's running with territories? Children. Child is running. Okay, so if you don't think that this, and by the way, child and a Hopi child are not far from Mars. It's just so sad. It's just so sad. There's a Machiavellian psyche here. There's a Machiavellian concept here, and I think intuitively we all know it. But I also think that what's Machiavellian is how much psychic damage is going to be done to these people who have to live through this. The idea of Tantalus. Sure, it's all tempting. It's tempting to continue to wipe out another group of people, but that's wrong on every level. No matter who you are, where you are, it's wrong. And why God me, why God is also in that sun-moon axis, along with Amor, which is that love, but it has conditions on it. And, we have always been supportive of Israel. Israel deserves its own place in the world. It truly does. I am so for that, but I'm also for the Palestinian people having a place in the world as well. So, same thing with, I think Russia should stay in Russia and leave the Ukrainian countries and the Ukrainian people alone. but unfortunately they don't, and the war causes dysfunction because people who live through war are generally psychologically damaged because it's really a bad thing to have to live through. It's dysfunction, you know. Anytime you do something that upsets a whole society like that, you're going to have trauma. There's going to be trauma as a result. So I'm going to let it go there. This has gone a little bit longer than I wanted, considering it's a video I wasn't even going to post. But with that said, thank you for watching this video. And until we meet again, I wish you, as always, only good reading.